We realized there would be problems. So we took the censor board to court, and Sebastian Paul was our advocate. And we won the case, and we got it released without any, not even a single cut. Mainstream cinema coming there, being selected. This is because when they select such a film, you have Brad Pitt, you have Angelina Jolie, and you have all these people coming to the red carpet, and that brings in the money. So we are not talking about art. We are talking about finance. We are talking about commerce. So that is the wrong direction to go. It is planned as being international, not at all restricted to India or Kerala. So it is a big plan because there are film directors all over the world who are looking for that space. It's an alternative. This has to be the alternative film festival, and it is going to be.
We have filmmaker Satish Babusenan with us. We are talking about film festivals, and we'll also talk about some of Babusenan brothers' films as well. In fact, the whole talk will be more of a revealing thing. That's what I'm expecting. Welcome, Satish ji.
Thank you, Ashish, and thank you for having me.
Quite keen about Cinema Sanctum because we have been celebrating a lot of festivals, and we have been celebrating all the award winners. Eager to listen to you.
You can keep asking me questions so that I can answer. The festival or the Cinema Sanctum is really a revolution. That is how I look at it. That is, we are trying to redefine what cinema really is, and also explore what it can be. You see, cinema needs to be restored to its place of fine art as it once used to be, and which has not been around for the last 30 years or so. But you also are aware of this when you have gone through all these film festivals, both here locally as well as internationally. So a redefinition is needed, and this is a revolution aimed at that.
Earlier, like I said, say like 20, 30 years back, we were appreciating film critics. Now, film critics is kind of sidelined, and film reviewers have come up to the front. So I might be talking totally different from what you're saying, but I think there is something that we can, converge to. Why I'm saying this is because we don't know what good film is. We, in the sense, general public, I'm also part of it. How to appreciate a good film. So I think maybe we'll start with that in your perspective, because in the last 10 years I have seen that you have been making films. I don't know the past. I will come to that. So definitely there is a clear understanding, and we have all seen very good practices in your filmmaking, things coming up in your film. So how do you define a good film? Maybe we'll start with that, I think.
Yeah, that's you've actually put it very, very well, I would say. Now, when we speak, you rightly mentioned of how there used to be something called film criticism, and now it has become film review. You see, there has been a democratization of the arts in one sense because of the growth of technology, and that is brilliant, and that's a way forward also. However, what has happened is a confusion reigns today about what is marketable and what is significant. You see, what is significant need not essentially be marketable, and vice versa. If you look at the older times when we were talking about cinema, we were talking about it just like we would speak about the other fine arts. We would discuss Bergman or Tarkovsky in the same breath as we would discuss Van Gogh or Leonardo da Vinci, right? But do we do that anymore? That kind of cinema no longer exists. Today we are only speaking about what is showcased at these big film festivals. The institutional theory of art applies also here. What the institution thinks or subscribes as important is what we, the general public, assume and understand as art. So there is where the vested interests have come in. So what is now presented and what is now showcased is what goes with the algorithm. So we are speaking about red carpets. We are speaking about signing of deals. Now, when you speak about the great big film festivals, Cannes, Berlin, or Venice, we are talking about, did Netflix buy it? Or how many films deals were signed, international deals were signed, and who walked the red carpet? Is that how film should be looked at? We've gone a long way from that. If you look at, if I think from my observation of these last 20, 30 years, if Tarkovsky comes up with his new film, he wouldn't be able to enter the film festival. And that's a bad thing. Imagine a world where we'll never see something like that again. The big filmmakers, they have been forgotten. You know, when I sometimes go to conduct film workshops, and recently I was doing one at NID, and I realized that, nobody had heard of Tarkovsky or Bergman or anything, and I had to speak to them about it. We have to raise the bar of appreciation. The people, as such, are not to blame. It is actually the art critic who is to blame, and it is the festival gatekeepers who are to
Was there any incident or any event that sparked to think about this, or has it been like a few of the events that made you think about this idea of cinema sanctum?
blame. This has been with me for several years. Now, I will tell you in my journey, when I was in college, that was when I think in 1988, the IFFI, International Film Festival in India, was held in Trivandrum, and I attended it as a college student. And something significant happened there. A major critic from Britain stood up, and this was during the open forum. This critic, major critic, he stood up and said, "The problem with you Indian filmmakers is that you're making Indian films. You're making international cinema. You're trying to make international cinema. That's something like what you were mentioning just now. That is not what we want to see. In the West, we want to see Indian films speaking about Indian problems. That is what we want to see." So the moment I heard that, something reworked inside my mind. There was a rebellion. I did not like it at all. So I said to my brother, we attended the film festival, we attended that meeting together, and we decided that that is extremely not parochial. What's the word? Being very condescending, patronizing. That's the word. Yeah. See, at that moment we decided that if the West wants to see a certain kind of film from India, they'll have to make it themselves. We are not going to do that. That was what I felt. I was maybe 22 years old at the time. So when I finally decided to make my first film along with my brother, we remembered this. And we decided that we'll never make any of our films the way the West wants to see. That is, to go by the formula of the big film festivals in the West. And I think we've not broken that. And we've continued to make films exactly the way we want to make them, talking about our thoughts, about our psychological, philosophical explorations, because that's what we believe that the art of cinema is meant for. Not the other part of it, not the entertainment or the industry part of it, but the art of cinema. That should be about one's thoughts, one's explorations about life, how to expand one's understanding of humanity and all the expansion of the mind. So we've tried to make that, and we realized with each new film that we were beginning to lose our invitations to festivals. We were beginning to lose our audiences also, even here within India. And then we realized that we are making films. This is the 10th film we just made, the 10th feature. We realized that we are making films for an audience that no longer exists. And that was the turning point. Why is there no audience which wants to see films about the human mind, or which look at films as artistic exploration? Then we saw it was, out there in plain sight, hidden in plain view. The narrative has shifted. It has been changed in a certain way so that the algorithm is protected. You make a certain kind of film, it goes to festivals. We knew all along what kind of film that is, but we refused to make it. And I'm sure we realized also that there are lots of other filmmakers who also, see this point, and maybe all of them don't have the strength to withstand this, and will continue to make things which are needed by the industry. So we wanted to create a space where they can fearlessly make cinema exactly as they want to, explore it like an artist, a painter explores his painting, not like an applied artist who is making an ad.
You rightly said, like there won't be a red carpet or a celebrity celebration of a celebrity in such festivals. But that is one of the attractions. What else can we do to get this penetrated to the movie audience, to the movie loving audience?
I think we'll have to broadly divide the movie loving audience. That is, I think, the first step that we can do. If you look at what IFFK is always saying, it says that now we have 15,000 delegates who are coming. It used to be 10,000, now we have 15,000. That is not the way to look at it. We are not talking about numbers. You have to look at the mindset of the person who comes to watch a film. Now, this is a worldwide phenomenon, not the numbers. There's not so many numbers in big festivals like the Cannes or Venice. But look at the selection of films which go to Cannes or Venice. I'm talking about the official selection. You will find films from Hollywood, you see, mainstream cinema coming there, being selected. This is because when they select such a film, you have Brad Pitt, you have Angelina Jolie, and you have all these people coming to the red carpet, and that brings in the money. So we are not talking about art. We are talking about finance. We are talking about commerce. So that is the wrong direction to go. So in our festival, which we are planning, there will be none of these. This will have to be looked at like a temple of cinema, a temple to the art of cinema, something very sacred. A lot of filmmakers out there will appreciate this. You make a film just like with the same intent as Leonardo da Vinci used to make a painting, or Van Gogh used to make a painting. Van Gogh didn't make his paintings to sell them. He painted them because he had to paint them. There are filmmakers who do that, and there's no space for them. There's no entry point for them. This festival is for that. And I think that is what film festivals should be doing, but they're not. They're going in the opposite track. This has to be a revolution, which will make all those festivals totally, off the table.
Do we have the plan for this festival, as in for the year, as in by when this should be and by when the entries should be completed?
We've released the manifesto now, so we are in the process. It will take at least a year where we can actually have this in the way that we plan. It has to be international. It is planned as being international, not at all restricted to India or Kerala. So it is a big plan because there are film directors all over the world who are looking for that space. It's an alternative. This has to be the alternative film festival, and it is going to be. At least a year, yes.
See, what happens is that even for any mainstream film, also mainstream. I'm not making the differentiation of mainstream and independent as of now, but unless they go try to understand who is making it, what is it about, why he is making that film. Say, like if I'm watching Satish Babusenan brothers films, I look for why that film is being made, what is it different, how that philosophical and and psychological things are included in that. And so unless someone searches for that, and I think that is a vision that you are trying to bring here when you talk about this kind of a festival, when we keep aside the red carpet and the celebrity aside. But in that case, how will that funding happen? I think that's also a big factor, right?
Yeah, that is true. And I'd like to disagree about one thing, which is you had a little doubt about the mainstream and the artistic movie and not wanting to separate. But there is a divide. Every filmmaker who considers himself as an independent art house movie maker knows the difference and will say there is. The mainstream will tell you the other thing, that it is all the same. You see, the intent is what separates them. Are you making a film to commercially release it? Are you making that film as an economic affair, or are you looking at it as a subjective artistic expression? That is the difference, and it is very much there. So we know that there is that difference, and our festival is going to be for the kind of film which is made for a very personal artistic exploration. It has nothing to do with commerce. Now, there's nothing wrong about commerce or the financial part of it because we live by it. But what happens is then you are fixed to certain rules about what is sellable in the market. Whereas art, the real art, cannot be looked at in that way. If you do that, you're going to be bound by those formulae. And that is what is happening now. Look at all the films which are being shown in these big film festivals, not only in this in the main section, the main official selection, but also in all the side sections. Look at the Indian films which make it to those places. They're all clearly defined. You can see it deep within us. We all know they're all about social issues, about the clear formula is there. What it speaks about India, about our human rights violations, or it could be about our infanticide. All those social issues. These are important, but they cannot really form a part of the artistic paradigm. We are talking about the other kind of cinema that has been forgotten worldwide, but we need to bring it back. We need to be able to talk about. In fact, that's one of the other things that we are planning. That cinema has to be seen as a collectible category. That is just like in the Louvre, for example, you have Mona Lisa, but you should also have Tarkovsky. I mean, they are the same level, but nobody has thought of it. We are actively pushing for this with people of that level so that the value to the art of cinema can be brought back.
So I'm not sure whether we covered that funding part because it's going to be a huge element and huge amount as well.
Sorry, I forgot that. The difference in our kind of funding will be it is not sponsorship. The funds will come from patrons. Like the Medicis used to finance the projects during the Renaissance. It was called Renaissance because it was a new rebirth. So we are looking for a Renaissance-like patron or patrons who understand that they will not do this for the money, but who understand the importance of preserving art because it's such a large part of the human civilization. So this has to be civilization transforming. It is a huge thing, much bigger than me or any of us. Huge thing. And the money will not come from sponsors because then they will have a say about exactly what kind of film should be shown. Even if it doesn't happen 1 year, it will happen very soon. So we will not permit that. And we want to create a council of international intellectual persons who can form that council so that we can be sure that this does not stray from the original concepts that we are defining now.
Babusenan brothers had a very tough time in the initial phase to get through this CBFC. There was you also had to fight with them to release one of your movies. And recently, not quite recent, but you also had this government of India also to convince them to get through one of the. So how is the journey of an independent filmmaker? Or probably you might compromise, but you are not prepared to compromise. So how difficult is it for an independent filmmaker to bring a film to the audience?
Yeah, that's a good question. In fact, one thing which my brother Santosh and I have done is we have never tried to release our film in a theater because we realize that the kind of film that we make, the kind of films that we make, are not really made for the masses. Nobody is going to buy tickets to come and watch your film, and we don't mind. And we don't mind because we are not going to put it out there. We want these films to be seen by small numbers of people, but we found that even that small number of people may not be available because of the Central Board of Film Certification. We refused to allow our film to be screened at festivals. That is why we had to fight. And before we made our very first film, Chayam, which is The Painted House, we knew that we were going to have trouble with the censors. Now, at the time, while we were writing the script, it was about false morality. So the film could not have false morality in it, and we had to attack it directly. So we decided that now how do we do this? We will have to show this character in the nude. So how do we bypass this? This was the first question before we started writing the script. And then we decided that That is not how we should do it. And I remembered something which one of our senior filmmakers had said. He said that in the West, they can show nudity or anything because they have the freedom, but here we can't. And we realized that that is not the right attitude. If we don't have freedom here, we have to make it for ourselves and for all the other filmmakers here. And we were about 50 when we started. And we decided that now we are the ones who should do it for the younger ones. So we went ahead and did it. We shot it with the nudity. We realized there would be problems. So we took the censor board to court, and Sebastian Paul was our advocate. And we won the case, and we got it released without any, not even a single cut. And that we have had to do again also. And every time we make a movie, we make sure that we do it exactly as we want to. We will not let. In fact, when we made the film Darkness, we had to tell this to the CBFC, the board, that you cannot dictate to us what we make. We are not going to cut anything and then cry over it. We are just going to keep it like this. And if you will not give us the certificate, we will go to court and we'll make sure that we get it. And finally, we got it. So I think that's the attitude. So finally speaking, it's very difficult for an independent filmmaker to make films independently. But that is the kind of attitude that we have to go with if we are really sincere to our art. I think there are young people out there who can do it, and I think they should.
How is your practice of finding the right balance for on screen and off screen?
Yeah, we do a lot of auditioning. There are lots of actors who wish to act in our films. Maybe not lots, but some, and we we audition them and we check them out. But that aside, by now we have a repertoire of actors, who know exactly what is the kind of film the Babusenan brothers make, and they're willing to come for the rehearsals that we have, long days of rehearsal. And many of them don't even ask us, what is my role? The moment we tell them, Cheta, we are making this new movie, okay, so when do we start? So that's the kind of dedication they bring to it. The same kind of dedication which my brother and I bring to our directing. Many of these artists also, and it's really a wonderful thing, that teamwork. So we are able to do it like that. That's how we choose our actors.
How is the scripting process? Whether you write a one line like the traditional process of one line, then the a scene to scene, and then storyboarding. How is it?
I don't know how other writers do this, but see, we plan out each scene, and then somehow, if I am the one who is writing that scene, I wish that scene comes to my mind. I simply write it out there. It's fairly easy. I don't know how that happens. I think all ideas move through us, like nature speaking through us. So I think this film makes itself through our minds. That's how I look at it, and that's how we make our films.
That's quite interesting. The way things are already there, they come to you, and you make a shape of it or a form of it, and quite interesting to think it that way. Yeah.
That's how I look at it. Yes, I cannot really claim ownership of my films. I can't say they are my films. You see, for one, lots of people are involved, but then as the captains of the ship, also we can't say it. It comes through. It just comes through. You only have to know how to type, and you should know the language, and you should have the education of images, and which also has happened. So the metaphors and everything comes through what is already there in your mind. So you just have to put it there.
Talking about independent film, somehow it relates to something like there is this ideal and real thing. Say like in terms of business, say like these are very good to archive. You can look back, and this is a reference for years for the future filmmakers, and it's kind of a it's kind of a study material. But at the same time, there has to be business to move things ahead, right? So, how is it possible for an independent filmmaker to work around for a business? Like 2 films, 3 films is fine, but you have done 10 films. So how is it?
I think a big paradigm shift needs to happen, and that is what I'm trying to achieve. We are trying to achieve with the Cinema Sanctum. That is, look at painting, for example. In the Louvre, you can see the Mona Lisa. You can see Michelangelo and all that. So, what happens in the current contemporary world? Who is making art like that? Take the case of Kiefer, the great European painter. His paintings don't look like what Michelangelo did, representationally, image-wise, everything. But it is also great art, because he is making that art not to sell in the market. It sells, but not because he made them to sell in the market. He made them for expanding the human mind. And then it sells. That is the paradigm shift that we want to bring. So that an independent filmmaker who honestly, sincerely, and dedicatedly makes his own independent film will be able to sell it. There will be a market for that. It is not there now, but it will soon happen. The value of that kind of filmmaking needs to be raised. That is what we are trying to do by also making it a collectible category.
Before that, maybe I should ask, like, I think you come from an architectural background, both of you, and you shift, you are, I mean, I don't say shift, you are also doing films. So could you also mention as in how film attract, yeah, I know while you were studying, you had this inclination to watch good films, but, what made you believe that, okay, we should also start making films?
And not architecture. I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering, and then I did my master's in visual communication design. That I did at Bombay IIT. My brother Santosh, he was in literature, and he did his PhD in film studies. Now, this is not how we came into cinema, but we had already come into cinema even as youngsters. I'll tell you how. Uh, our uncle, mother's brother, was a filmmaker. His name is C.P. Padmakumar. He was an art filmmaker, and he made only art films, and therefore he couldn't make too many of them. He made only two or three. But they were independent films, and he sold some of the ancestral property also to make those films. So this is what we had seen, you know. And we thought that, so there is that kind of cinema making also. When we were young, we saw it. And I also remember that when I was 15 or 16, one day my uncle Padmakumar said, "Hey, come and watch a Swedish film at the Film Society screening." So I said, "No, I'm not interested. I like Hollywood. And what is Swedish cinema?" And he said, "No, no, you come and watch it. You'll like it." I went and watched it. It was Ingmar Bergman's Cries and Whispers. I had never seen anything like that before in my entire life. And for a whole week, you see, I was utterly confused. I was almost depressed and all that. But when I came out of it, after 1 week, I knew that I was going to be a filmmaker. Then the journey was there. I was also interested in science, so I became an engineer. But this was with me. Literature was with me. I was also reading Marquez and that and this and all that. My love for literature. So that was an evolution in itself. So that when we decided to make cinema finally, it was this pure art. By then, our uncle had passed away. He would have been happy actually if he saw us, do what we were trying to do. Anyway, so when we finally decided to make those films, they all turned out to be art films. And I will also tell you something interesting. I was asked during the IFFK, where our first film was shown by the press, I think, they asked, "So when are you going to make your next film, which is a mainstream film?" I was really surprised because it had never even entered our heads. I said, "What do you mean? I don't understand." And then we were told that no, all the independent filmmakers who we have met have made one independent film. That's a stepping stone to make a mainstream film. We said, "No, we've never thought of that, and we don't plan to do it either." And in these 10 films, we have never done that. It does not excite me. I'm not against mainstream cinema, but it doesn't work for me. Whereas literature works for me. It's just like bestsellers don't work for me. I don't read. But I can read Saramago and I can read Marquez. I cannot read, I don't even know the other names, but don't like it. Same goes with cinema. I like to watch Netflix. I watch very interesting movies also on Netflix. But this is what happens to all people. We all like entertainment. But when you really want your soul to be raised, where do you go? There is no space. That space is gone now. You could go to Tarkovsky, you could go to Parajano, Bergman, Khodorkovsky. Those are people who made films where your mind can expand, You can find the stillness, you can find the solitude within yourself and all that. You can't find a story there, but you can find yourself. It's a high point of life, of being human. That is lost. We should bring it back. So that is what this fight is for.
So I was thinking while you were answering this, as in one of the first questions I asked, what's a good film for you? How do you define a good cinema? But I think you did not answer it straight away. But all through these answers, I can make out how a good cinema can be defined. But there is no straight answer. That's what I could understand from all of these answers. There are things that are takeaways, which make a good film.
Yeah, I would look at it like the intention is what makes a good or not a good or a bad film. Because that can exist even in the commercial or the mainstream. You can have a good or a bad mainstream film. That's not the word. But what makes a mainstream film and what makes a film which is a work of art is the intention. If you're looking at the market, then you're guided by the formula which gets you there. Then it is mainstream. But if you're not looking at that, if you're looking at yourself, if you're exploring yourself, then that becomes a real art film. But what we see as art films nowadays, which are what can be called prestige films, the ones which win at Cannes and Berlin and all that. Just take a look. As an example, I'll tell you, 15, 20 years back, you would watch the Venice Film Festival winner, Golden Lion, and it would be a film by Tarkovsky, or it would be Khodorkovsky, or somebody brilliant, those big names. We remember those films. Now, who won last year's Cannes or last year's Berlin or 2 years back? Can you remember? No, it is disposable. These are only prestige films which are aimed at the market and at the red carpet. And, it is a coterie which is deciding on what should get there and what should get promoted and what should be awarded and all that, all the rest of it. I've actually gone through this thing, so I'm also speaking from personal experience. So I have been on the inside, so I know it a little bit more than many people. But even, if you look at it objectively without your pet prejudices, everybody can see that this is what's happening. It's the duty of critics also to inform the layperson that this is what it is. And nobody needs to tell somebody, the difference between Muttathvarki, for example, or a bestseller writer, and Dostoevsky or something like that. The same actually works for cinema also, but nobody's talking about it. It's time we did.
Quite true that way, as in this needs to be discussed, and hopefully with social media penetrating, and there could be people or groups that are rightly taking these things up on which are not much seen probably in the course of time, like you are making this initiative. So there could be a point where all these like-minded people can converge to and make this quite big, and probably that could be one of the reasons why we are talking, and so while talking about that, how big is this team, Cinema Sanctum at the moment, and are you looking for any expansion, or how are you going to operate?
Right now, we're a very small team, and I'm the one who has come up with the vision of it, and I'm lending focus to this thing. This is how that movement should be. But we want to be very selective. We don't want to lose focus. We don't want that to happen. So we are looking at this internationally, and already there are people who are also involved with this from other places also. But we are also very careful about how we proceed with this. We don't want this to ever, become one of the other film festivals. So, and also about patronage. We're waiting for the right. We are actually waiting for the Medicis of cinema to happen, to set this renaissance. We are in talks with some people of that level. We are in no hurry. We want to make sure that this really works. There's just one chance, and there are not too many people who want this to happen. So I think it is the moral responsibility, and I take it as mine personally, to make sure that this happens.
This could be a little too early to ask, but have you identified some of the parameters that these are the things that we'll eliminate? If not, these are the things that we should include, anything like that.
Yeah, lobbying is something which cannot happen. We have actually pointed it out in the Film Festival manifesto. There will be no lobbying, there will be no sales deals to be signed, and there will be no buyers for those things there. So that is going to be very different. But there will be rewards, there will be awards, there will be good money behind it, and all that. But that money will not come from a potential interferer in the process. That means it will not come from a sponsor, it will only come from a patron. That is how. We have set out a lot of, highly demanding things. We can't, it has to be totally watertight. So we are trying to keep it like that. Pure art, where only art will be appreciated and exhibited. So if somebody wants to go and watch what is the fine art of cinema, this sanctum will be that place. And ideally, this will finally be located in one of the great galleries of the world. So that is what we are planning.
That's a great thought, in fact. So you mean to say that these movies may not be available, in the public domain?
Even afterwards, once we are through. No, the films would be available, but films would be even now. Films are available, but we as people, as a population, we are not driven to watch them. Now, for example, if you look at what restorations are happening now, Hollywood is doing a lot of restoration, and we think that, see how Hollywood respects all the great old masters. They would Tarkovsky's Mirror, which was restored, etc. These things are happening, but why are they doing it? They are restoring these films so that they can sell them again. Whereas we will restore those films so that they can be preserved forever. Now, imagine a world where we'll never get to see a Tarkovsky. If those prints are gone, we'll never get to see a Bergman again. Our children's children will never get to. We can still read a Dostoevsky book. We can still read Tolstoy, but we'll never be able to see a Bergman or a Tarkovsky again. That'll be a great loss for human culture, for the civilization. The films will be available, but it will be raised to that level of high art, just like painting or sculpture. That is what we are trying to
do. This is what I would want to make this conversation as in something eye-opening for the people to think about, okay, what is happening in the festivals as of now and how things are different here.
One thing which, you see, there are a lot of young filmmakers who come out to start making the films. And some of them do look at cinema as art. They make one film, it goes nowhere. It doesn't get selection into any festival. So what do? They're very young, starting off, 20 years, 25-year-olds. So then they can only think of the mainstream. So you're sold out even before you start. There's no space. They're not sold out because they are basically starting from the wrong point. They might have started from the right point. Sorry, but they could not find the way, because the way was not there, it was blocked. We need to create a space for that. Yeah, internationally, Indian filmmakers who make films, or filmmakers from third world countries who make films, independent films, cannot find their way into the film festival circuit. And thousands of films go to these film festivals for submission. And finally, which are the ones they take? If you have your Brad Pitt in it, you get selected to Cannes or Venice. Because when you select that film, Brad Pitt comes there. That brings the money, the sponsorship. Actually, it is horrible what has happened to cinema. And we thought, there was a time when I thought that these were the temples of art. When I started with my first film. And I realized that these are not the temples of art at all. They don't even remember art there. So we have to make our own temple. And we have to make sure that it stays clean. We have to make a space where somebody who sets out to make an art house movie, an independent, truly independent movie, without looking at the market, will find a place. He will be rejected everywhere else, but if he is good in his craft, if he is good in his thinking, he can find a place. He or she can find a place in our festival.
Quite promising and inspiring for any such filmmaker who have that mettle and that determination to do it. Thank you so much. It was wonderful listening to you, Satish ji. We'll definitely have a second round of talk once things are more clear and I know things are clear in your mind, but when there are roads clearly defined and the dates clearly defined, I think we'll definitely talk about. Thank you so much for this opportunity to have a conversation with you.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to discuss this. And I hope that young filmmakers, not only young, old filmmakers like me also, who are disillusioned with what is happening around them, I hope more people will start discussing this thing, discussing the cinema sanctum, and start working towards it. Let us build that place where cinema can finally be seen as art and not as a product for sale. Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you once again.